She was merely 16 years old, an ordinary teenager, with typical aspirations, college dreams, career goals, a better future. A man contacted her through social media. He mentioned employment opportunities, said the compensation was substantial, described it as an incredible chance. She believed him, because she was young, because she was uninformed, because she desired to believe someone recognized her potential, that someone saw value in her. She arranged a meeting, traveled to an address he provided. She was never seen again. Her parents searched desperately for months. They contacted authorities. They made public pleas. But she simply vanished, as though she never existed, as though she never mattered. She was being trafficked, being sold, repeatedly assaulted, forced into conditions of servitude, all because she trusted an unknown individual online. This is not an isolated incident. This represents the story of countless millions. Every single year, across the entire globe, human trafficking has transformed into a $50 billion yearly enterprise. $50 billion. To provide perspective, this exceeds the gross domestic product of numerous nations. This constitutes a massive commercial operation, an enormous industry, and it continues expanding at an accelerating rate. Approximately 27 million individuals currently exist in conditions of servitude worldwide. At this very instant, 27 million. Consider that. 27 million people lacking freedom, without autonomy over their existence, receiving no compensation for their labor, imprisoned within circumstances of severe exploitation. And this is occurring in cities proximate to you, happening in your nation, transpiring in your community. Human trafficking is not exclusively an occurrence in developing regions. It is not something distant. It exists here, today, right now. Contemporary human trafficking differs fundamentally from historical trafficking. There are no slave vessels. There are no bodies shackled on ships. Modern human trafficking is refined. It is covert. It is virtually undetectable. It originates on social media platforms. Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Snapchat. Predators post employment advertisements. They offer generous compensation. They promise travel opportunities. They guarantee improved circumstances. And individuals respond, particularly young people, particularly adolescents, particularly vulnerable populations, those from economically disadvantaged families, those without prospects, those desperately wanting to believe their circumstances can transform. The predators possess expertise in identifying vulnerability. They comprehend precisely what to communicate. They understand how to make someone feel valued. They comprehend methods of establishing trust. They comprehend emotional manipulation. Then, when the victim is entirely confident, when completely invested, when has surrendered complete trust, they strike. The victim receives an invitation for a meeting, in an unfamiliar city, in what appears secure, or so they imagine. Upon arrival, they discover themselves surrounded. Large men, menacing, threatening, informing them they now belong to this organization, that they now carry a financial obligation, a debt for transportation, a debt for accommodation, a debt for meals, a debt impossible to repay. Then the labor commences. In brothels, in manufacturing facilities, in private residences, in any location where traffickers can exploit their productivity. They labor 10 hours, 20 hours, 24-hour periods, without respite, without adequate rest, without sufficient nourishment. They receive minimal percentages of their earnings. They receive assurances of imminent liberation, assurances consistently unfulfilled. If they attempt escape, punishment follows. Beatings occur. Rape becomes weaponized. Torture materializes. Their identification documentation gets confiscated. Their communication devices are seized. They possess no one to contact. They have no mechanism for requesting assistance. They are imprisoned, entirely and completely confined. And the traffickers are not amateurs. They are not casual offenders. They represent sophisticated criminal organizations, possessing leadership structures, operating across multiple nations, managing complex financial systems, implementing money laundering protocols, maintaining political connections, corrupting law enforcement personnel, purchasing judicial cooperation, possessing all the infrastructure of legitimate enterprises. Except their commodity is human subjugation. The human trafficking enterprise generates extraordinary profits because victims constitute renewable resources. You acquire a victim initially. Subsequently, they generate indefinite income potential. Because you do not compensate them. You do not purchase raw materials. You do not invest in expensive infrastructure. You simply seize a human being and extract value until they become unusable. Then you discard them and procure another. This explains why human trafficking proves so profitable, why it attracts criminal enterprises, why it multiplies so rapidly. Traffickers generate an average of $20,000 annually per victim. 20,000. Through exploitation, through servitude, through theft of human dignity. Multiply this by 27 million victims. You comprehend why this generates $50 billion. The financial returns are sufficiently substantial that traffickers can compensate law enforcement, judges, government officials to ignore their operations. They can purchase immunity. They can guarantee freedom from prosecution. They can operate openly knowing they will experience no legal consequences. And the victims? The victims endure. The victims perish. The victims develop severe post-traumatic conditions. The victims suffer profound depression. The victims develop substance dependence as survival mechanisms. The victims contemplate self-termination. And frequently they succeed. A woman was trafficked from Romania to Germany. She labored in a brothel for 5 years. 5 years of mistreatment. 5 years of exploitation. 5 years without autonomy. When she ultimately escaped, she discovered she possessed nowhere to return. That she had severed family connections. That society perceived her as morally compromised. Like someone who had selected her circumstances. She possessed no employment prospects. She lacked professional credentials. She had no community. 3 months following her liberation, she ended her life. Because trafficking does not terminate when you escape. The psychological injuries persist. The emotional scarring continues. The shame remains. And a community that assigns responsibility for your victimization makes reconstruction impossible. What about the trafficked children? They transport these experiences throughout their existence. Girls subjected to sexual exploitation. Boys experiencing abuse. All containing memories of horror. All possessing violated bodies. All struggling to function within a society, frequently not comprehending them. That frequently dismisses them. That frequently condemns them. A girl experienced trafficking to the United States at age 13. She worked in a Las Vegas brothel through age 16. Upon liberation, she possessed only a 13-year-old's academic foundation. She suffered severe post-traumatic stress symptoms. She could not maintain employment because her psychological triggers were continuously activated. She could not sustain relationships because trust in men remained impossible. By age 20, she had attempted self-termination 6 times. This represents the consequence of human trafficking. It extends beyond immediate exploitation. It concerns permanent damage. It involves demolished existences. It signifies stolen possibilities. It represents unrealized human potential. And this transpires currently. It occurs proximate to you. It happens in prosperous nations. It materializes in recognizable cities. It transpires within industries you support. It exists across the internet you utilize. Traffickers are simultaneously composing fraudulent advertisements. They are messaging adolescents. They are fabricating profiles. They are deceiving. They are manipulating. They are seducing. They are preparing to traffic someone. Perhaps your daughter. Perhaps your son. Perhaps your cousin. Perhaps someone familiar to you. And you may remain inattentive. You may observe warning signals without comprehending. You may be neglectful. You may be ignoring the individuals you cherish. Because human trafficking operates invisibly. It remains concealed. There are no conspicuous indicators. There are no obvious markers. Victims may surround you without your awareness. They might labor in your restaurant. They might maintain your residence. They might work in the brothel blocks away. They might exist virtually, being sexually exploited through webcams while you rest. And what are you accomplishing regarding this circumstance? Probably nothing. Because it does not personally impact you. Because disregarding it remains simple. Because acknowledging it becomes uncomfortable. Because recognizing this reality obligates action on your part. Yet it transpires. And it will persist. Provided profit exists. Provided demand continues. Provided indifference persists. Provided individuals remain willing to victimize others. Modern human trafficking represents one of the gravest atrocities. It constitutes absolute servitude. And it accelerates. And it becomes increasingly refined. And it becomes easier perpetrating and increasingly challenging to identify. And virtually nobody is adequately addressing it. This constitutes the $50 billion enterprise. This represents modern human trafficking. And it happens currently. And will persist. Provided you take no action.